The prison planet was always cold. Dark clouds covered the sky, and the sun never showed its full face. Men walked in heavy boots, carrying weapons and laughing like nothing mattered. They were soldiers, but here, they acted like kings, no rules, no mercy. Only power and pain. Jace was one of them. He was a human soldier with scars on his arms and sadness in his eyes. He didn't talk much. He just did his duty and stayed away from trouble. But everything changed on the day of the fight celebration. That day, after a successful raid on an alien camp, the soldiers drank and cheered. They brought back food, strange tech, and prisoners. Among the prisoners was a small alien girl. She looked no older than 12 in human years, but no one knew for sure. Her skin was pale silver. Her hair white like snow, and her eyes, large and glowing blue, were filled with fear. She didn't speak, she didn't move, she just stared at the floor. Shaking quietly, the commander laughed. He slapped Jace on the back. "You've been too serious lately, soldier," he said. "Here's a little something to cheer you up." And just like that, they dropped the alien girl at Jace's feet, wrapped in a dirty blanket, thin and weak. She looked more like a broken toy than a living being. The other soldiers laughed. "She doesn't even talk," one said. "Maybe she's already dead," another joked. Jace didn't laugh. He looked at her. Really looked. He saw her arms were covered in bruises and small cuts. She had metal tags around her neck, blinking with strange lights. A collar with numbers instead of a name. She was not a gift, she was a punishment. A joke made from someone suffering. "Come on, say thank you," the commander joked. Jace said nothing. He just picked her up carefully, as if she might break into pieces. She didn't resist. She just closed her eyes. Like she was used to pain, Jace carried her to his small room. It was nothing more than a steel box with a bed, a sink, and cold walls. He laid her gently on the bed and covered her with a clean blanket. She opened her eyes but didn't speak. That night, Jace sat beside her. Watching her sleep, she moved in her dreams, shaking and whispering in a language he didn't understand. Tears rolled down her cheeks. He wanted to help but didn't know how. The next morning, he tried to feed her. She didn't eat. She just looked at the food, then at him, then turned her face away. Jace sighed. He sat on the floor and ate a little himself. Showing her it was safe, she watched him carefully, like a small animal testing if the world was still dangerous. Later, he cleaned her wounds. He found more bruises under her sleeves and small burn marks on her back. He used water and soft cloth to clean them. She flinched every time he touched her, but didn't cry out. That broke his heart even more. "Who did this to you?" he whispered, knowing she wouldn't answer. She just looked at him with those glowing eyes full of fear, pain, and something else. Hope, maybe, or confusion. The other soldiers made fun of Jace. They called him alien babysitter and soft heart, but he didn't care. Something about her was different. He couldn't explain it. She wasn't just a broken alien girl. She was something more. That night, as he turned off the lights, he heard her whisper for the first time. The voice was soft, like wind through glass. "Safe," she said, just one word, but it was enough. Jace looked at her, surprised. She was staring at him, her eyes not afraid anymore. Not completely, she had spoken. She had trusted him, even a little. He didn't sleep much that night. He kept thinking about that word. Safe. No one had ever called him that before. And now he felt something new. A quiet promise inside his heart. He would not let her die like this. He would protect her, even if it cost him everything. She didn't speak again the next morning, but her eyes followed Jace wherever he went. Those big glowing eyes, blue like a quiet moon, watched him with silent questions. No anger, no joy, no fear anymore, just silence, and something deeper. Jace had seen many prisoners, aliens who screamed, cried, begged, or even fought. But she was different. She didn't do any of that. She was like a small shadow in the room, barely there, like her soul had already left her body. He brought her a warm drink. She touched the cup but didn't drink it. Her fingers were thin and shaking. He noticed her nails were broken, some bloody. It looked like she had been clawing at metal walls before she came here. Trying to escape, maybe, or trying not to lose her mind. Jace sat on the edge of his bed, watching her. She sat on the floor, knees pulled to her chest, back against the cold steel wall. Not crying, not talking, just existing. And yet that silence was so loud, louder than screams. Louder than any noise on this broken planet. He didn't ask her anything, not yet. Instead, he reached into a small locker and took out a soft scarf. He used it to tie back her white hair slowly and gently. She didn't move. But her breathing changed for a second, like maybe, just maybe, The touch didn't feel like pain this time. Later that day, Jace walked down to the lower levels. He needed supplies, real bandages, clean water, maybe some old healing gel from storage. The guards laughed when they saw him. "Still babysitting that alien thing?" One asked. Jace didn't reply. Another said, "Better sell her while you can before she stops breathing." They all laughed again. But Jace just walked away. He hated this place. He hated what it turned people into, but he wasn't ready to leave. Not yet. Not until he fixed what had been broken. When he returned, the girl was asleep again. But she wasn't resting. She was sweating, body shaking. Her lips moved without sound. A nightmare. Jace knelt beside her and gently touched her shoulder. Her eyes flew open in terror. She gasped and tried to crawl away. "No, no," he whispered, hands open. "It's okay. You're safe." Her back hit the wall and she curled into a ball. Arms over her head, Jace froze. He saw something on her back. Scars, not from weapons, but from chains. Like someone had tied her up and burned her every time she moved. He felt sick. He wanted to find whoever did this. He wanted to make them pay, but instead, he sat down slowly on the floor, showing her he meant no harm. He placed the healing gel on the ground near her and slid it closer. She stared at it, then at him. For a long time, she didn't move. Then, with shaking fingers, she picked up the small tube and held it close. She didn't use it, she just held it like it was something rare. Something kind, a gift. That night, Jace didn't sleep. He sat by the door with a small light on. He kept writing notes, trying to translate the few words she had said. Safe. He searched in old alien dictionaries for anything that matched. He wanted to speak to her, he needed to. Suddenly, a soft whisper broke the silence. He looked up. She was standing now, barefoot and silent, holding out the scarf he gave her. She walked slowly to him and gently placed it in his hand. Then she sat down beside him. Closer than before, she said nothing. But she was not afraid anymore. "Do you have a name?" he asked softly. She looked at him, then slowly raised her hand and pointed to her chest. Her lips moved. "Aria." The voice was so soft it was like a song carried by the wind. But Jace heard it clearly. "Aria," he repeated. She nodded once. He smiled. It was the first time he had smiled in months. Maybe years. She had a name. She remembered something important. She was not just a broken girl, she was Aria. And someone had tried to erase that. He looked at her and made a silent promise in his heart. Whatever had happened to her, whoever had hurt her, he would find the truth. And if she had a past, she deserved a future too. For the first time since she arrived, Aria spoke her name. Since that moment, something had changed between her and Jace. She still didn't talk much, but her silence wasn't empty anymore. Now it held meaning, it held memories. Even if they were locked away, Jace began to study her more closely. Not in a curious way, but like someone reading a broken book. Page by page, looking for clues. He wanted to know what had happened to her, and why someone would destroy a girl who once had a name. One morning, while Aria slept under the thin blanket, Jace noticed something strange, a small metal bump near her collarbone. Just under the skin, it wasn't natural. It blinked very softly once every few seconds. He hadn't seen it before. Was it an implant? A tracker? A wound? He didn't want to touch it without her knowing, so he waited. That night, he sat beside her with a tiny scanner he borrowed from the tech lab. Aria didn't move, but her eyes opened, calm but alert. Jace showed her the scanner and pointed to her collarbone. "May I?" he asked gently. She looked at him, then slowly nodded. He scanned the area. The device beeped and blinked red. Something was inside her, something high-tech. Not just a chip, but a full data storage unit. Very old and very alien. Jace's heart started beating faster. This was not normal. He had seen alien tech before, but never something so carefully hidden inside a living being. He used a connector wire and plugged the scanner into his old data pad. It was risky. If the chip was protected, it could fry the system, but he had to try for her. The screen flickered. Then it came alive. Glowing blue lights formed strange shapes. Words from an alien language. And then, slowly, images appeared. The first image was of a green planet, full of floating cities and glowing trees, peaceful, bright, beautiful. Then came a little girl running through the tall silver grass. She laughed as her mother lifted her in the air. Her father joined them, and they all looked happy. Jace looked at Aria. She was sitting beside him, eyes wide, tears rolled down her face. She remembered the next images were darker. Flashes of fire, ships landing. Soldiers in black armor, humans, a woman screamed. Reaching out, then chains, cages, a prison, cold metal rooms. Pain, needles, and fear. Then came a clear image, one that froze Jace's blood. A man stood smiling in front of a captured child. He wore a commander's jacket, a human commander. The same man Jace had seen walking the base halls only days ago. It was him. He was the one who took her. Jace clenched his fist. He couldn't believe it. This wasn't just war. This was hunting, this was torture. He looked at Arya again. She was shaking, holding her arms tightly around her body. He reached out slowly and placed a hand on hers. "You remember," he said softly. "You were taken, stolen from your home." She nodded slowly. "Your name was never lost," he added. "You were made to forget it." She looked into his eyes, and for the first time her voice came back. Soft, broken, but clear. "I was healer," she said. "My family, peaceful people. No war." Jace's throat tightened. "They took you just to use you," he whispered. Arya nodded. "They break us, make us forget who we are." Jace stood up and paced the room. He couldn't stop thinking about the images. Why was the chip still inside her? Why didn't they remove it or destroy it? He had a theory. Maybe she was meant to die. Maybe the chip was missed because she was seen as trash. But she survived. She held on to her memories, buried deep but not lost. Jace looked back at the screen. There was one last file, a locked one. He tried to open it. The screen blinked red. Access denied. He frowned. "Can you open this?" he asked Arya. She shook her head. "Only bloodline key," she said. He understood. Only someone from her family or someone with her blood could unlock it. He looked at her and said, "Then we need to find someone like you, or take you back to where you came from." But Arya's face turned pale. "They burned it," she whispered. "My planet destroyed." Silence filled the room. A silence full of loss, pain and something else, a spark, hope. Jace looked down at the chip. If her people were gone, then she was the last. And maybe, just maybe, that locked file could hold something important, something that could save others or stop this cruelty. He made a choice that night, a big one. He would find a way to unlock the chip, even if it meant going against his own people. He was no longer just protecting a broken girl. He was protecting the last living memory of a peaceful world. Ever since Jace unlocked the memory chip, he felt like someone was watching him. The base didn't feel safe anymore. The walls seemed colder, the cameras slower to blink, and the silence around Arya had started to grow heavier, like the air knew something was coming. Jace tried to act normal. He trained with the other soldiers, ate in the mess hall, kept his head down, but in his room, he was different. He sat with Arya, listened to her, helped her remember small words. He even made a fake ID badge for her, calling her a cleaning assistant just in case someone came knocking. Arya had changed too. Her eyes no longer stayed on the floor. She moved softly but with purpose. She didn't smile yet, but when Jace entered the room, her shoulders relaxed. She had begun to trust him, and that scared him more than anything. One evening, Jace returned from training to find his door unlocked. His heart dropped. He rushed inside. Arya was sitting on the bed, eyes wide with fear, holding a sharp piece of broken metal. The room had been searched, drawers open, datapads gone, even her blanket tossed aside. Jace checked the lock, no sign of force. Whoever did it had clearance. Someone from the inside. He dropped to his knees, looking Arya in the eye. "Did they hurt you?" She shook her head slowly, but her hands were still shaking. "Hide chip," she whispered. "I did." Jace opened the small vent under the bed, and the memory chip was still there, safe. But it was clear someone knew about her, and they were searching. The next day, the base commander called him, a tall, cold man with silver hair and sharp eyes. "You've been busy," the commander said. "Spending time with your gift?" Jace kept his face calm. "She's quiet," he said. "Doesn't bother anyone." The commander raised an eyebrow. "We don't keep pets, soldier," he said. "We keep tools and trash gets burned." Jace didn't reply. He saluted and walked out, but inside he was burning. The commander had seen the chip in those old memories. He was the one who took Arya from her world, and now he wanted to make sure no one ever found out. That night Jace packed a small bag, food, energy cells, and a stolen old blaster. He also took the chip and hid it in Arya's scarf, folding it carefully. "We can't stay," he whispered. "They're watching us," Arya nodded. I follow, she said, her voice quiet but firm. They waited until the lights dimmed and the outer guards switched shifts. The base had a small trash route, a tunnel that dumped waste into the jungle outside. Most believed no one could survive out there. The jungle was full of wild alien creatures and leftover war machines, but Jace had no choice. They moved quickly, quiet as shadows. They reached the tunnel, but just as they were crawling inside, a voice called out. "Stop!" Jace turned, his blaster ready. It was someone he knew, Milo, a soldier from his old squad. Younger than Jace, but smart, loyal, until now. Milo raised his hands, no weapon. "I'm not here to stop you," he whispered. "They know, Jace. They searched your room, checked your logs, even checked the mess hall cameras." Jace didn't move. "Why warn me?" Milo looked down. "I saw the images," he said. "I saw what they did to her. That's not war, that's evil." Jace lowered the blaster slightly. "You're risking your job." Milo gave a small laugh. "I'd rather lose a job than lose my soul." He handed Jace a small device. "This will cut the power to the motion sensors for 2 minutes. After that, you're on your own." Jace nodded. "Thank you," he said. Milo looked at Arya and gave a quiet nod. "I hope you find what they took from you," he whispered, then disappeared into the shadows. Jace and Arya crawled through the tunnel. It was tight, smelly, full of old metal parts and leaking wires. Rats with glowing eyes watched them pass, but they kept going. The light at the end of the tunnel grew larger, and finally, they were out. Outside, the jungle waited, dark, deep, full of sounds that didn't belong to any world Jace knew. Arya stepped forward, her hand glowing faintly as she touched a tree. The tree moved aside, letting them through like it recognized her. Jace stared. "You have powers," he whispered. "Small ones," she said, "but growing." They moved deeper into the jungle, the base behind them, the truth in their hands. But Jace knew the real battle hadn't started yet, because now the hunters would come, and they wouldn't stop until both of them were buried beneath the stars. The jungle was not quiet. It breathed, it whispered, it moved. Every tree seemed to watch, every sound felt alive, but still. It was safer than the base Jace and Arya had escaped. For now, they walked through glowing plants and broken war machines covered in vines. Old alien structures rose in the dark like forgotten towers. The path was hard, but Arya led the way with soft, glowing hands. She seemed to know where to step, which branch to avoid, which tree to trust. They found shelter under a rocky cave near a stream. There, Jace finally let himself breathe. Arya sat beside him, silent but calm. For the first time in days, there were no guards, no cameras, no steel walls. "Do you know where we're going?" he asked. She shook her head. "No," she said softly, "but something calls me." That night, Jace studied the memory chip again. He connected it to his datapad and watched the locked file blink like a heartbeat. Still closed, still waiting, he looked at Arya. "Are you sure we can't open it?" She nodded. "Only with blood key. Or temple code." "Temple?" he asked. She closed her eyes. "In jungle. Before war, healers guarded ancient gate. If I find temple, I can unlock memory." Jace looked at the map scanner. Nothing showed, no signs, no paths, no structures, but then something strange happened. The datapad glitched. Lines blinked and shifted, and then a new file appeared. A secret one hidden deep in the chip. It wasn't a full map, just coordinates. 2 blinking numbers floating in space. He tapped the screen. The datapad displayed a 3D image of the jungle. Far to the east, deep inside the uncharted zone, was a glowing point. Jace smiled. "Looks like we just found your temple." The next day, they started moving. The path was not easy. The trees were thicker, the animals louder. Strange machines slept half buried in mud. Some still active, they passed an old drone, broken and rusted. It turned its head slowly as they walked by, but didn't move. Later, they crossed a bridge made of roots. Underneath flowed green water filled with swimming lights. Arya paused. She touched the water. A small memory flashed in her eyes. "I used to swim," she whispered, "in water like this." Before war, Jace said nothing, but inside his heart ached. She had lost everything, and yet she walked forward, braver than any soldier he had ever known. By the 3rd night, they were tired and hungry. Jace gave Arya the last food ration. She broke it in half and gave it back to him. They ate together, side by side. No words, just trust. But the jungle was not sleeping. In the shadows, machines had started to move. The base had found their trail, and it had sent something far worse than soldiers. Trackers. Jace woke up to a strange noise, low humming. Like metal wings, he grabbed his blaster and looked outside. Red lights danced between trees, drones, fast, deadly, silent. He rushed back to Arya. "We have to go, now!" They ran through the trees, dodging lasers and nets. Arya used her powers to make plants grow fast, blocking paths. Jace fired at the drones, hitting two, but more kept coming. Then suddenly, boom. The ground exploded near them and Jace fell. His leg was bleeding. Arya dragged him behind a fallen tree. She closed her eyes and whispered in her language. The tree bent and opened, revealing a hidden tunnel. They crawled inside just before another explosion hit. The tunnel was dark but safe. They walked slowly, Jace limping after what felt like hours. They reached the end and stepped out into a wide-open space. What they saw made them freeze. A giant stone wall stood before them, covered in glowing lines. It looked old, very old, but alive. At the center was a door shaped like a hand. Arya stepped forward and placed her palm on it. The wall reacted. It lit up with bright blue light. Pulsing like a heartbeat, symbols moved across the surface, forming a circle around Arya. The door opened slowly, revealing a glowing room inside. Jace followed, amazed. Inside were old statues, walls covered in alien writing, and at the center, a glowing platform. Arya stepped onto it. The memory chip in her scarf blinked. The locked file opened. A voice echoed through the chamber. "Daughter of the healers, guardian of the gate, your time has come." Arya looked at Jace, eyes wide. "I remember everything," she whispered. "My people, my duty, and the truth they tried to erase." Jace stepped closer. "What truth?" But before she could answer, the ground shook. The drones had found them. Arya held out her hand. Blue light flowed from her fingers. "We must leave," she said. "There is more." "But not here," Jace nodded. They had the map, the truth, and a future to fight for. But the war was not over. It had just begun. The hidden temple was now behind them. The memory chip was unlocked, and Arya remembered everything. But there was no time to rest, not with death following their trail. Drones had spotted them. Trackers, small and fast, had already mapped their position. Jace and Arya had no choice. They had to run deeper, into the part of the jungle marked on old maps as Dead Zone. No one came back from there. No signals, no noise, just silence. The trees were taller now, their branches hung low, as if the jungle itself wanted to trap them. The light above was dim even though it was daytime. Strange whispers moved through the leaves. The wind carried voices that weren't human, but Arya didn't seem afraid. "This place remembers me," she said softly. "My people lived close to this forest long ago." Jace glanced at her. "Does it protect you?" She touched a vine and it curled around her fingers like a pet. "Sometimes," she replied, "but sometimes it tests us." They walked for hours. Jace limped from his injured leg but didn't stop. Arya helped him, her hands glowing to guide their way. He noticed something strange. The further they walked, the stronger she became. Her skin glowed faintly, her eyes brighter, as if the jungle was feeding her power. But with power came danger. The jungle was full of machines, old war weapons, now wild and twisted. One night as they camped near a waterfall, Jace heard the sound of metal crawling. He stood and saw it, an old walker bot. Its legs broken but still moving. It had no pilot, just wires and a glowing red sensor. Arya stood between Jace and the machine. She whispered something in her native tongue. The machine paused, then slowly turned away, disappearing into the trees. Jace stared in shock. "You controlled it?" She shook her head. "No, I remembered its name. In my language, machines had names and hearts." Jace didn't sleep that night. He watched her from the shadows. She wasn't just an alien girl anymore. She was something more, something powerful. The next day, they reached the Valley of Roots. Huge twisted trees formed bridges, tunnels, and traps. The map showed that the gate, the final alien portal, was close. But the land between them and the gate was cursed. They could feel it in their bones. "We'll go around," Jace said, but Arya shook her head. "No path is safe," she said, "but this one, it calls me." They moved carefully. Every step was watched, every leaf a possible danger. Creatures moved in the shadows, some with many legs, some with no face. Once, Jace almost stepped on a sleeping root beast. Arya stopped him just in time. The beast opened one eye, glowing yellow, then it closed again, letting them pass. The deeper they went, the more Jace's leg hurt. He fell once, hitting a stone. Arya rushed to him. Don't leave me, she whispered. Voice shaking, Jace smiled through pain. I'm still here, he said. Just need a second. Arya placed her hands over his wound. A soft blue light covered his skin. Jace felt the pain ease. It didn't heal completely, but enough to move. He looked at her in awe. You're healing now? She nodded slowly. My memories give me strength, but strength wasn't enough. Because the jungle had a guardian. As they reached the clearing before the gate, the sky turned dark. Thunder rolled, though there were no clouds. And from the ground rose a massive figure. Half stone, half machine. It had the shape of a beast, but the eyes of something old, angry, and awake. Arya gasped. It's a judgment, she said. Left by my people to test who may pass, Jace raised his blaster. But Arya stopped him. No weapons, she said. If we attack, it will destroy us. The guardian stepped closer, growling like metal grinding against stone. Its voice was deep and full of echoes. Do you carry war or healing? Arya stepped forward. I carry memory, she said, and hope. The guardian looked at Jace. And you? Jace stepped beside her. I carry guilt, he said quietly, but I also carry the will to protect her. Silence. Then the guardian stepped aside. The trees opened and the gate appeared, tall, glowing, ancient. But just as they moved toward it, a sharp sound cut through the air. A drone had found them. Followed by two more, they flew fast, firing red beams. Jace pulled Arya down. He shot one drone, but missed the second. Arya screamed as a beam hit the ground near them. Throwing dirt and fire into the air, Jace shielded her with his body. Go, he shouted. She shook her head. Not without you. The guardian roared, stepping forward again. It crushed one drone with a single hit. But more were coming. They had only seconds. Arya stood. Her eyes glowing like stars, she raised both hands, and light exploded from her body. The jungle shook. Trees moved. And the drone stopped midair, then dropped like stones. Jace fell back, breathing hard. Arya collapsed beside him, weak but alive. You opened the gate, he whispered. She nodded, eyes closing. One more step, and we're free. The ground trembled beneath their feet. Arya stood weak but unbroken, her hands still glowing with power. Jace held her up, blood dripping from his arm. The jungle behind them burned. Machines crashed into the trees, and red lights moved in the dark. They had reached the gate, but they were not safe yet. The ancient portal stood tall, half open, humming with alien energy. It needed one last key, a final touch to complete the cycle. Only Arya could do it. She took a slow breath. Her body trembled, skin pale, light fading from her eyes. I don't have enough power, she whispered. I need to give more. Jace shook his head. No, you've done enough. You saved me. You saved both of us. But Arya looked at the stars above. I was born to protect the gate, she said softly, and to protect the last truth of my people. Behind them, the sound of flying drones grew louder. More were coming, dozens, maybe hundreds. They couldn't fight them all. They couldn't run anymore. Jace looked at Arya. There has to be another way. She smiled gently. There isn't. Then she stepped toward the gate. Her feet moved slowly but with purpose. She placed both hands on the glowing stone. It responded, lines of light spreading like veins. But it wasn't enough. The gate buzzed, then dimmed again. Arya fell to her knees. Jace ran to her side. Stop, he begged. You'll die. She looked into his eyes. One tear slipped down her cheek, glowing bright blue. She touched his face with her hand. Thank you for giving me back my name. The tear rolled down her hand and dropped onto the gate's center symbol. The ground shook again, then light exploded everywhere. The gate came alive, bright, loud, and powerful. The drones screamed as their systems failed, crashing midair one by one. The trees bent backward, the sky split open. A portal opened wide, a door to another world. Jace stared in shock. But when he turned to Arya, she was falling. He caught her in his arms. Her skin was cold. Her eyes half closed. No, stay with me, he whispered. But her voice was barely a breath. You
are safe now. He carried her through the gate as the portal pulsed. The light swallowed them whole.
When Jace opened his eyes, the sky was blue. Real blue, not the gray of the prison world, not the green haze of the jungle. The air smelled clean and the wind was soft. He looked around, confused. They were in a valley full of glowing trees and singing birds, a world untouched by war, but his arms were empty. Arya was gone. He sat on the grass, broken. "Arya?" he called softly. No answer. He looked down. Her scarf lay in his lap, wrapped tightly around the memory chip. A symbol from the gate was now glowing on it. Then a soft breeze blew through the trees. A whisper floated through the air, her voice. "I'm with you. Always." Jace closed his eyes. A tear rolled down his cheek. He had lost her, but she had saved him. She had saved everything. The chip she left behind still held more secrets. More memories, maybe even a way to bring justice. He knew what he had to do. He stood, looked at the glowing sky and whispered, "For Arya."